Chapter 8. Quick, gather the cubs. The panic-stricken voice startled Nala out of an already fitful night's sleep, driving her heart to beat fast against her chest. She tried to stand, but her wobbly legs wouldn't cooperate. The sudden chaos surrounding her made it even more difficult to find her bearings as lionesses dashed frenziedly around the cavernous space. Seraphina, bring the cubs deeper into the cave. Keep them hidden, Sefu ordered. What's going on? Nala asked. Her mother didn't answer, but clamped her mouth on the back of Nala's neck and hauled her into the innermost part of the cave. Nala watched with a growing sense of dread as Seraphina then did the same with the rest of the cubs. What's going on? She asked Kamari, who had just been deposited next to her. It's the hyenas, he whispered. They're on the attack. The hyenas, she should have known. Their pride had no natural predators in this kingdom, other than the lion prides that prowled in search of new shelters, but none of them would be so bold as to attack Pride Rock. Only the hyenas would do such a thing, and they were now part of the kingdom. When Scar took over as king and pronounced that their kingdom would be merged with that of those awful hyenas, the entire pride had protested. How could mortal enemies be expected to coexist? They hunted the same prey, and worse, the hyenas would often target lion cubs when in search of food. Those flea-infested dogs were the pride's fiercest competition in nearly every aspect of their lives. But Scar would not listen to the lioness's concerns. He had welcomed the hyenas into the kingdom and had banished the 2 remaining lions who had been part of their pride, following the deaths of Mufasa and Simba, leaving Kamari as the only male. No one talked about it, but Nala knew they all feared that Scar would send him away once he came of age. What Scar had promised would be a great and glorious future between the lions and hyenas had proved to be as horrific as the lionesses had predicted. Pride Rock's new unwelcome residents had brought nothing but destruction to their home. Nala could hear the racket of riotous peals and howls even from deep within the cave. Sefu, Sarabi, Kido, Viola, and Fanti rushed over to where they were all huddled. Are the cubs all safe? Thandi asked Seraphina. Yes. Is it the hyenas? Nala's mother asked. Sefu nodded. They are raiding last night's kill. They are going to take it all if we don't put a stop to it. Nala ran over to her mother and buried her face against her fur. She twisted around far enough to watch through the corner of her eye as Sarabi assumed her place in the center of the lionesses. The hyenas are on the attack. She looked around at the lionesses. We all know what this means, and that there is a possibility all will not return. Seraphina and Viola will remain with the cubs. The rest of us will defend the kill. You should stay here with the others, Kido said to Sarabi. No, Sarabi said. I will defend the kill. Sarabi, I will not argue with you, the queen said. The lionesses all fell in line behind her. Then, as a group, they sprinted out of the cave. Seraphina pulled Puleng and Kamari in close, protecting them while their mothers went out to protect the pride. Nala once again buried her face against her mother's chest. She could hear the hideous sound of ripening flesh as the lionesses battled with the hyenas. There was a loud, awful cry that Nala was certain came from one of the lionesses. Moments later, Sefu returned to the cave, dragging a limping Thandi behind her. Tend to her legs, Sefu said, before darting back out. Seraphina went to her side, but Thandi held her off. I am okay. Stay with the cubs. How many hyenas are there? Viola asked. 24 at least. This cannot continue, the other lioness said. Why does he allow them to stay? There was another scream. This one sounded like Sarabi. Seraphina shot up. Take care of the cubs. I'm going to help. Mama, no! Nala screamed and ran to her, grabbing onto her leg. Stay where you are, Thandi said to Seraphina. Sarabi gave you your orders. My pride needs me to protect our cubs so that our pride lives on, Thandi shouted. Do as your queen ordered. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed against the walls of the cave, putting a halt to Seraphina and Thandi's dispute, and bringing the outside fighting to an abrupt end. Nala could hear the scramble of feet racing away, no doubt the hyenas retreating to the holes they'd crawled out of. They were as cowardly as they were destructive. Where are the others? Came Scar's angry voice. Come out of that cave at once! Nala's legs trembled. She looked to the other cubs and saw they were just as frightened as she was. Come, her mother said to her. All of you. But, Nala started. Come, Seraphina repeated. Scar will not harm you. I will not let him. And Nala knew in that moment that her mother would fight Scar to the death before she allowed him to harm her or any of the other cubs. All the lionesses would do so, even those who did not have cubs of their own. They filed out of the cave. Nala had to blink several times to adjust her eyes to the brightening sun. She hated to admit the fear she felt as she watched Scar pace slowly in front of the lionesses, lined up against the wall of stone. His tail swished back and forth behind him, its lazy cadence a stark contrast to the furor in his eyes. Now, Scar said, what is the meaning of all this fighting? Didn't I proclaim that there would be peace here on Pride Rock? Sarabi took several steps forwards, a clear indication of her role as their queen. When she spoke, it was with an air of authority. The lionesses spent much of the night replenishing the food store, and those hyenas came in this morning and tried to steal it all. Sarabi, 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 Scar sang in a deceptively sweet voice. How can the hyenas steal something that also belongs to them? We are all family, remember? They are not our family, Sarabi said, and we cannot continue to exert this much effort to find food, only to have the hyenas consume the entire kill. The lionesses are exhausted. They are having to go further and further out to hunt. The Pride Lands are filled with prey. They are simply searching in the wrong places. I would not be surprised if they are doing so purposely. The lionesses are doing all they can to secure food. There is none, Sarabi said. The dry season has lasted much longer than it has in years past. Do you not see what this drought has done to the grasslands? There is hardly anything left for the animals to graze on. Many have left in search of water. Couple that with the hyenas' ferocious appetites, and the lionesses cannot keep up. What about the cubs? Scar asked. Make them hunt. They are not ready. Well, make them ready, he bellowed. I want every cub in this pride to go out and hunt, starting tonight. Seraphina gasped and wrapped a paw around Nala. You are putting them in danger, Sarabi said. She shut her eyes for several moments, then said, It is possible that 3 of the cubs are ready to take on a more active role in hunting, but I refuse to send out the younger cubs. I will not allow it. Nala's breath caught in her throat as Scar closed the distance between himself and Sarabi. She heard low growls coming from several of the lionesses. You will not allow it? Scar asked. You are forgetting who rules this kingdom, Sarabi. I do. Now, go out there and hunt. You lionesses had no problem hunting for food when Mufasa was here. We hunted the same amount, Thandi said. The difference is that Mufasa would never have allowed hyenas to live at Pride Rock. Scar raced over to her, his face close to hers. Hunt more, he said with a low growl, because the hyenas are here to stay. He took several steps back and tried to take on an apologetic tone. My dear lionesses, why are we fighting? I thought we had come to an understanding. I have explained that the hyenas are our friends. It is time the rest of you accepted it. Friends do not raid the food of their friends or threaten their young, Sarabi pointed out. It was one time, Scar said. No cubs were hurt. He released a dramatic sigh and rolled his eyes. Look, we all want what is best for Pride Rock. We have to learn to live together. It should not be this difficult. The food sources will be depleted if the hyenas remain, Scar, Sarabi said. That is a fact. This is not sustainable. Make it sustainable, he said, all traces of his previous contriteness gone. You have no other choice. He ambled slowly along the line of lionesses, looking each in the eye, including the cubs. Now, Scar said once he reached the end of the line, why don't we all get some rest? You lionesses have a long night of hunting ahead of you. The tension in the air was thick as they all stood silently and watched Scar saunter back towards his cave on the other end of Pride Rock. The lionesses took a collective breath once he was gone. Thandi limped over to Sarabi and nudged her with her nose. Are you okay? Are any of us okay? Was Sarabi's reply. The hyenas are making Pride Rock uninhabitable. How much longer will we be able to survive here? No one refuted her statement, because they all knew it was the truth. It had become more apparent with each day that passed. Mufasa would be so disappointed in me if he knew what I had allowed our home to become, Sarabi continued. No, he would not, Thandi argued. He would never, Sefu added, running up to her side. Mufasa was always proud of you. You were doing your best. You cannot blame yourself for the pain Scar had caused, Keto said. This is his doing, not yours. Several of the other lionesses joined them, all assuring Sarabi that she was not at fault for what had become of Pride Rock. Nala looked to her mother, who stared at her fellow Pridemates with a forlorn expression, but she did not join them. Instead, she circled back around the cubs, bringing them all together against her. What are we going to do about last night's kill? Thandi asked. The hyenas made away with most of it. We have more pressing matters to contend with, Sarabi said. She closed her eyes and sucked in a deep breath. When she opened them again, she took the time to look at all the lionesses surrounding her. There is something that we have all been avoiding, but it cannot go unsaid any longer. We will have to leave Pride Rock. A collective gasp sounded throughout the group. No, Nala whispered. We cannot leave, Sefu argued. We cannot stay. Not for much longer, Sarabi said. I do not want to leave either. But we cannot go on this way. Look at how long it took to secure last night's kill. And within seconds, those hyenas made away with it. We cannot live this way much longer. But this is our home, Keto said. We cannot relinquish it to the hyenas. We will have no choice. Unless Scar steps up and becomes the type of king we need him to be, we will have to go in search of another home. Unease wove its way through the pack of lionesses as the reality of their dire situation began to settle in. It felt as if a raging windstorm had blown through, devastating the entire pride. Fear sank into Nala's heart like a mighty claw sinking into its prey. She had considered life beyond Pride Rock a number of times in the past, but with the knowledge that she would always be able to return, never once had she thought they would be forced to leave. It was unthinkable. This was their home. It was their source of protection and comfort. They could not allow those awful hyenas to run them away. There was only one way to stop that from happening. She must find Simba and bring him back to Pride Rock. Simba was the rightful king. It was his by birthright, and he was the only one who could rightfully remove Scar from the throne. If Simba was dead, Scar's rule would have to continue. If there was any truth to Rafiki's vision, if Simba was out there somewhere, then he would be able to save them all. She just had to find him first.